Sonic Adventure. This is a game that a lot of people have mixed opinions on. Some people love it, and some people don't love it.
Sonic Adventure.
This game is fucked. The levels are barely functional, and the animation makes Mass Effect look like fucking Pixar.
Now yes, I can totally agree. This game is not perfect. It is very far from perfect. Reel it in! No, how do you do this? Biggs, get the fish! Get the fish! In this video, I want to talk about the positive aspects of this game, and more specifically, what Sonic Adventure did right. One of my favorite things about Sonic Adventure 1 is how, unlike the games after it, this one really feels like the original Genesis 2D Sonic games translated into 3D, specifically Sonic's story. And just before I start, this video is only going to be covering Sonic's story and Super Sonic's story, as I don't really have as many positive things to say about the others. I'm doing this because I want to speak about this game in its most positive light possible. His story starts off with Sonic chasing after a bunch of police cars and then being face to face with Chaos Zero. Now, there isn't anything too special about this boss fight, but one thing a person who has played any other 3D Sonic games will notice is how loose Sonic controls in this game, especially in regards to his spin dash. Now, I absolutely love this, but I can understand why his controls have become much more tight in recent games, as 3D Sonic games are becoming more and more linear. Maybe a certain game will change that, but nonetheless, I really appreciate Sonic's looser controls in this game. After defeating the first boss, the player can now play the first level, and this is where the real game starts. Emerald Coast. This level right off the bat showcases probably my favorite part of Sonic's story, the open level design and secret areas hidden throughout. You see, when the level starts, you could just go forward and progress, but if you turn around, you can find a small platform behind you with 30 rings. I mean, this isn't much at all, but you never see this in newer games like Sonic Forces, and this being at the very beginning of the first level shows the player that if they deviate from the main path, they may find secret areas with cool stuff inside, and this can promote so much replayability of a level if the player wants to find everything hidden. Continuing on, there's this fun skip you can do if you do a spin dash at the right time, which skips this section that otherwise would have taken the player longer to complete. This is cool because just like the hidden areas I mentioned a moment ago, this promotes replayability, but this time for a completely different reason. That being finding every skip and trying to get a low time on the level. Now, I know it may seem like I'm pointing out literally everything about this level, which is something I don't want to do, but these being right at the beginning of the level was just too cool not to mention. The rest of the level continues this trend with different areas and different routes to take, and really solidifies this level as one of my favorites in the entirety of Sonic's story, and probably the entire game as a whole. And I mean, that was only the first level of Sonic's story. There's still 9 others in the story that are just as good and some even better. I'm not going to go as much in detail as I did with Emerald Coast with the rest, but I still want to mention some of them. Windy Valley. Just like Emerald Coast, this level has its fair share of secrets and hidden collectibles spread throughout the level that are very fun to search for. Running through the tornado section as fast as I can is also really fun. And hey, who doesn't love the music of this level? I seriously cannot listen to that song without thinking about that. I'm so sorry. One thing I see a lot of people dislike about this level are the long sections of basically just holding forward as Sonic runs down the long paths. And I mean, yeah, I can see why people might not like this, but I really don't feel like they drag on too long, and they really show the speed you can achieve as Sonic in this game. Whenever I play this level, I always try to see how fast I can go down them. Overall, Windy Valley is just a really fun stage. I mean, there's not anything mind-blowing about it, but I've never not had a good time blasting through this stage. Casinopolis. I mentioned this one because it's quite a weird one if I'm being honest. This stage isn't about running to the finish line as fast as you can or searching every corner for secrets, but rather playing pinball? Yeah, basically in this stage, Sonic and Tails are at a casino, and in order to finish the stage, they have to get enough rings to reach the Chaos Emerald. The amount of rings being a whopping 400. To get the rings, the players can hit slot machines, like actually physically hit them with a homing attack that makes rings spew out, search around, or play pinball. After finding a machine and going into it, the player gets 3 balls. And after losing all their balls, instead of getting kicked out or being able to try again, you go into the sewer. And down there, the player can collect a ton of rings. Like, if you're good enough, you can get 350 in a single run. I really like this level because it tries something different that we don't really see anywhere else in Sonic's story, while also not being a drag with the sewer allowing the player to collect a majority of the rings. Ice Cap. Originally zoned in Sonic 3 and Knuckles, is absolutely phenomenal in this game. The platforming within the mountain, while slow at some points with the icicles, is just fun for some reason. And of course, who couldn't forget about everyone's favorite part of this level? The snowboarding section. Along with how fun it is to snowboard down a giant mountain as Sonic, the music of this section is amazing. Like, they went crazy with the saxophone. The higher path during this section is also really fun to try and go for, and when I play this level, all I can think about is City Escape, and just how much I love levels of Sonic surfing down giant inclines going at insane speeds. Seeing this level essentially recreated in the second Sonic movie was also just so incredible as well. I really hope we see something similar to this in Frontiers. Twinkle Park. This stage once again shows off how creative the different levels of Sonic's story and just the entire game are. I mean, in Sonic's story so far, we've had a beach resort, a floating valley with constant tornadoes, a casino full of pinball machines, a giant snowy mountain that we can snowboard down, and now an amusement park. This level is just pure and true fun. And honestly, this or Speed Highway might be my favorites of this entire game. The beginning section involves stealing a bumper car from an enemy, and then proceeding to drive it across a huge racetrack. At first, your car is slow, but the more and more rings you collect, you go faster and faster, making speedrunning this level a lot of fun. I always love the big jumps you can do when the road goes downward if you have enough rings, and just overall this section is a ton of fun to replay. After that, we get to ride a roller coaster down into the main area of the park and get to explore it. To progress, the player has to bowl with Sonic being the ball and are rewarded with rings based on the amount of pins they knock down. Although I never seem to be able to collect all the rings if I get a strike, nevertheless, this section is a lot of fun, with the end seeing the player scaling the giant castle in the middle of the park. Speed Highway. As I mentioned before, this level is a top contender for my favorite stage in the entire game. What I absolutely adore about this stage is how perfectly it takes advantage of Sonic's speed and showcases just how fast he can really go. Very similar to those small sections of Windy Valley, but instead this time takes it to the next level. Right at the beginning of the level, the player gets shot through a loop at blazing speeds. And to me, this is the developers basically telling the player, hey, get used to it, you're going fast in this stage. Immediately after, the player can take advantage of a moving platform to go to the next section. Or, if you want to be a cool guy and maintain your speed, you can just run over it. And that's an amazing thing about this stage. If you're good enough, you rarely ever have to stop. Along with that, the level is hiding so many secrets and alternate paths that I'm almost always finding a new secret or faster path to take every time I play this stage. The climax of Speed Highway sees the player running down the side of a giant skyscraper in order to outrun the police. And if you want to maintain a high speed while doing this, you have to dodge all the obstacles in their path. This entire level has a great sense of speed, with little to no areas that require the player to slow down. The daytime section of this level, yes, the level is not over, there is a daytime section, is really fun to explore, with it having even more alternate paths than the nighttime section of the level, and overall makes Speed Highway an incredible Sonic stage. Alright, that's all the stages I wanted to mention in Sonic's story. Now onto the bosses. The main bosses of Sonic's story are the different Chaos tiers, those being Chaos 0, Chaos 4, and Chaos 6. Out of these, I really only like the Chaos 6 fight if I'm being honest. Chaos 0 is laughably easy, and Chaos 4 is also easy but slow and tedious. Chaos 6 is overall a really satisfying fight in my opinion. I can't really put my finger on it, but I always look forward to this fight. In order to defeat it, the player has to deactivate the satellites Eggman throws at the player and then toss them at Chaos 6, causing it to freeze and be open to attacks. After a few hits, it goes down and Sonic can move on. Again, this is a simple fight, but it's just satisfying to me. The final boss of Sonic's story is actually not another Chaos, instead a fight against Eggman, this time using a new robot, the Egg Viper. Apart from getting a load of this,
Get a load of this!
yeah, he said that one a lot. The boss itself is pretty simple. Not exactly the hardest fight, but pretty fun nonetheless. The fight involves dodging Eggman's attacks and then attacking back when given an opening. The final phase of this fight is actually really cool because if you don't attack enough times in the given openings, you just die. And honestly, that makes the final phase a lot tougher than the rest of the fight, and it's just funny. Sonic's story is easily the best of this game, and it's pretty disappointing that the others don't really live up to the amount of fun and enjoyment I get from just sitting down on a Friday night and blasting through this in an hour or two for fun. Each stage of his story is meticulously packed with secrets and alternate routes to explore that offer tons of replayability to players who want to find it all. Additionally, speedrunning these stages is incredibly fun, with a lot of them being able to be completed in a couple of minutes if you're fast enough. Super Sonic's story is incredibly short, and it's supposed to be. It's the culmination of all the stories into one with a final boss to end the game off. The story starts out with a bunch of cutscenes, with my personal favorite being the one showing Perfect Chaos head into the city and just start causing absolute destruction at every corner. We see streets starting to flood, windows shattering under the pressure of the water, and just the entire city falling apart. I love this cutscene because it shows how powerful Chaos can become when at full power, and how it destroyed an entire city in an instant. In the wake of the entire city being destroyed, Sonic shows up and after harnessing the positive energy of the Chaos Emeralds, becomes Super Sonic. Then we hear those first couple guitar riffs of Open Your Heart, and that's when you know shit's going down. The boss fight has two phases and each aren't too hard. The first phase, Chaos's attacks are a lot slower and spaced out and easy to dodge, but after completing the first phase, things get a little bit harder. Chaos's attacks start to get a lot more difficult to avoid, and his attacks come out at a way faster pace. In total, throughout the fight, you have to hit him a total of 6 times, 3 times for the first phase and 3 for the second. What I like about this fight isn't the actual boss fight itself, but just the idea and area it takes place in. Perfect Chaos is a really cool boss and looks incredible as well, and the whole area around it is just so cool. A ruined and flooded city that's completely destroyed with broken roads offering paths to speedier ways to reach him. I honestly think Generations does an incredible job at fully fleshing out this boss and really shows the potential of Perfect Chaos in ways that just couldn't be fully realized on the Dreamcast. Sonic Adventure isn't a perfect game. I'm sure we can all agree on that. But despite its many flaws and odd design choices, there's a lot of incredible aspects about this game that not a lot of people fully appreciate. I mean, this was the first 3D Sonic game, and it laid out the groundwork for all 3D Sonic games that followed it. And hey, even if you don't like this game, I hope this video at least helped you realize what this game did right. Okay, the cutscenes are a little goofy though.
Watch out! You're gonna crash!